All right, welcome to today's Explainer, everyone. We're going to do something a little different today. We're going to level up our understanding of atomic bonding by treating it just like a video game. We're going on a journey to discover the fundamental architectural rules of matter. By the end of this lesson, you'll see exactly how the tiniest particles in the universe interact to build absolutely everything around us. Before we actually jump into the rules, though, we got to ask a pretty foundational question. Why do atoms even bother interacting in the first place? Why isn't the universe just a massive, boring cloud of lonely atoms floating around in the void? What is the drive pushing them together?
Well, it all comes down to what we can call the prime directive of matter. Think of atoms kind of like teenagers trying to find the absolute comfiest, lowest effort spot on the living room couch. They bond to reach a much lower, more stable energy state than they'd have all by themselves. When two independent hydrogen atoms come together, they basically drop into this deep potential energy well to form a stable H2 molecule. Nature always seeks stability. So bonding, it's really just nature's way of chilling out and lowering the energy of the whole system.
So here's our video game map for today's explainer. We'll start with the prime directive. Move to level 1, the accounting system. Level 2, finding personal space. Level 3, overlapping quantum waves. Level 4, the ultimate merge. And finally, the master builder's toolkit. All right, level 1, the accounting system. Let's dive right in. This level is all about balancing the atomic checkbook using the 1916 Kossel-Lewis Approach. If we want to understand how particles interact here, it really helps to think of the two main bonding methods like simple social interactions. First, you've got electrovalent or ionic transfer. This is literally like giving your winter jacket to a freezing friend. One atom completely hands over an electron to another. This creates positive and negative charges, and that resulting electrostatic attraction locks them together tight. Then you have the covalent bond. That's more like two friends sharing a single blanket on the couch. They stick together because they mutually rely on those shared electrons to stay comfortable.
And whether they're transferring electrons, like sodium and chlorine do, or just sharing them, like two chlorine atoms would, the end goal is exactly the same. They're just trying to achieve that super stable, noble gas-like outer shell of 8 electrons. You probably know this as the octet. It's an absolutely fantastic, totally logical way to account for where all your electrons are going. But here's where we hit a massive paradigm shift, because while level 1 is great for counting electrons on paper, it kind of completely fails to explain the physical, three-dimensional shapes of molecules in the real world. Lewis structures, by definition, are completely flat.
And that's a problem. Think about water. In our flat 2D accounting system, water looks like a simple straight line, just HOH. But physical reality shows us that water actually has a very distinct bent shape with a highly specific angle of exactly 104.5 degrees. To understand why it literally bends like that, we have to level up our understanding of how these particle pairs interact. So let's move to level 2, finding personal space. Welcome to level 2. This is where we actually introduce physical personal space into our models. Enter VSEPR Theory. That's valence shell electron pair repulsion. The rule here is wonderfully simple. Electron pairs are highly repulsive. Since they all carry a negative charge, they absolutely demand their personal space. So they actively arrange themselves in 3D space to get as far away from each other as possible, which pushes chemical bonds into very specific geometric angles. And there's actually a hierarchy to this repulsion. Those unshared lone pairs of electrons, like you find in ammonia and water molecules, they demand even more personal space than regular bonding pairs, so they actively pinch the remaining hydrogen atoms closer together. You can honestly think of VSEPR as the ultimate cheat code for this level. It shows exactly how the total number of electron pairs, or domains, maps directly to real-world molecular architectures. For example, if you have 4 total domains, like carbon does and methane, they push away from each other to form this perfect tetrahedral shape. But if you swap some of those for lone pairs, that base tetrahedral shape gets distorted into the bent shapes we just talked about. It's really all about maximizing personal space. Which brings us to level 3, overlapping quantum waves. All right, now we're zooming in past those solid shapes and dots, deep into the genuinely strange quantum reality of valence bond theory. The crucial shift here is getting quantum. Electrons aren't just tiny little points orbiting a nucleus anymore. They're localized waves of probability that occupy very specific orbital shapes. Valence bond theory says a covalent bond isn't just a drawn line. It's the actual physical, real-world overlapping of these half-filled atomic orbitals from the combining atoms.
And the greater that wave overlap, the stronger your bond becomes.
There is a catch, though. The normal quantum math doesn't quite work for atoms like carbon, which needs to form 4 perfectly equal bonds. So nature uses this brilliant little trick called hybridization. You can basically think of it like mixing different colors of orbital paint together to get a brand new uniform color. Here is exactly how that mixing plays out. If we take 1 part S spherical paint, mix it with 3 parts P dumbbell-shaped paint, and pour it all through our quantum funnel, we get 4 brand new, perfectly identical sp3 hybrid orbitals. And guess what? These hybrid orbitals naturally push apart to form that exact 109.5-degree tetrahedral architecture we predicted back in level 2. It all perfectly connects. Now for the final boss, level 4, the ultimate merge. We've made it to molecular orbital theory. This is where individual atomic identities completely disappear. In this ultimate merge, we aren't just overlapping waves anymore. The individual atomic orbitals combine to form completely new orbitals that belong to the entire molecule. When the waves constructively interfere, meaning they add together, they form a lower energy, stabilizing, bonding molecular orbital. But if they destructively interfere, they subtract from each other. That creates a high-energy anti-bonding orbital, complete with a repulsive nodal plane right down the middle where the electron density is literally 0. So, let's test everything we've learned with a surprising, real-world question, one that none of our previous levels can actually answer correctly. Ready? If you pour liquid oxygen between 2 magnets, is it attracted to them? Basically, is liquid oxygen magnetic? It's a crazy question, right? Lewis accounting and valence bond theory both confidently predict that all of oxygen's electrons are perfectly paired up, so it shouldn't be magnetic. But it is. Molecular orbital theory elegantly solves this oxygen anomaly. When we map out the energy ladder for O2, you'll find 2 singly occupied, unpaired electrons just hiding out in oxygen's pi-star anti-bonding orbitals. Because those specific electrons are left unpaired, they mathematically and physically prove that O2 is paramagnetic, meaning, yes, it is physically attracted to magnets. Mind blown, right? Finally, the Master Builder's Toolkit. To wrap up today's explainer, let's look at how all these levels play together. Because the absolute biggest takeaway here is that no single theory is the purely correct one. They are all just interacting layers in the chemist toolkit. Sometimes you just need quick Lewis accounting to check the octet. Other times you need VSEPR to predict a 3D shape. Sometimes you got to use Valence Bond Theory to visualize localized hybrid connections. And sometimes you need the heavy math of molecular orbital calculations to understand deep magnetic realities. Nature relies on all of these interacting layers to build the architecture of matter. We've traveled from the basic instinct of atoms trying to lower their energy, all the way down to the complex quantum waves that bind them together. So now that you've mastered the architectural rules that hold the entire universe together, the only question left for you as chemistry students is this: what incredible molecules are you going to imagine and build in the future? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.